Hi. Title 49, Federal Railroad Administration, Part 225, Railroad Accidents, Incidents Report, Classification, Investigations, 225.1, Purpose, 225.3, Applicability, 225.5, Definitions, 225.6, Consolidated Reporting, 225.7, Public Examination Use Report, 225.9, Telephone Report, Certain Accidents, Incidents, 225.11, Reporting Accidents and Incidents, 225.12, Rail Equipment Accident Incidents Reports alleging employee human factor to cause employee human factor attachment notice to employee supplement, 225.13, Late Reports, 225.15, Accidents and Incidents not to be reported, 225.17, Doubtful cause of alcohol and drug involvement, 225.18, Alcohol drug involvement, 225.19, Primary groups of accidents and incidents, 225.21, Forms, 225.23, Joint operations, 225.25, Record keeping, 225.77, Retention records, 225.29, Penalties, 225.31, Investigations, 225.33, Internal control plans, 225.35, Access to records and reports, 225.37, Optical media transfer, electronic submission, 225.39, FRA policy on converted data, 225.41, suicide data. Appendix A to Part 225, Schedule of Civil Penalties. Appendix B to Part 225, Procedure for determining reporting threshold. Authority of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 103-3022A, 2103, 2107, 21901 to 902, 21301, 21302, 21311, 28 U.S. Standard Code 2461 No and CFR Federal Registration 1.89. Source of 39 Federal Register 43224, December 11th, 1974, unless otherwise noted. Let's make sure this goes down to right. 225 Purpose. The purpose of this project is to provide Federal Railroad Administration accurate information concerning hazardous risks existing for the national railroads. The FRA need for the information effectively carry out the regulatory responsibility under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code, Chapter 201 and 2 through 13. The FRA also uses the information to determine the comparative trends of the railroad safety and to develop hazardous elimination risk reduction programs that focus on the preventing a railroad industry accidents. Any statement may require the railroads to submit copies of the accident, incidents, injuries, illness reports filed with the FRA under this part. Accidents, incidents, injuries, illness which occur in the state. 225.3 Applicability. Except for provided in paragraphs B, C, and D of this part, all the railroads except are railroads exempt. Part applies to all railroads except 1. Railroads that operate freight trains, track inside installation, which are not part of the general railroad system. Transportation owners, no track except for the track that is inside of the installation that is no part of the general railroad system of the transportation used for freight service. 2. Rail mass transit operations in urban areas not connected with the general railroad system of the transportation. 3. A railroad that exclusively hauls railroad inside installation, insular on own tracks, no tracks except for the tracks used exclusively for hauling passengers inside installation that is insular in operation is not considered within insular if one or more of the following exhibits is on its line. 1. Public highway, railway grade crossing that is in use in a grade with the rail grade crossing that is in use. A bridge over the public road water is used for the commercial navigation. 4. A common corridor over the railroad and its operation are within 30 feet of these any railroads. B. Internal control plan requirements in Statute 225.33A3 through A11 of the general apply. 1. Railroads that operate their own track of the general railroad system transportation that have 15 or fewer employees covered by the hours of the service law in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21101, 21107. Railroads that operate their own track exclusively of the general system. The record-keeping requirements regarding accountable injuries and illnesses accountable to the rail equivalent. Accidents found in Statute 225.25A through G do not apply to 1. Railroads that operate and own track of the general railroad system of the transportation that have 15 or fewer employees covered by the hours of service law of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21101, 21107. Railroads that operate with their own track exclusively over the general railroad system. All requirements of this part record reporting injury, illness that they incurred with the classification of person that results on a train accident incident do not apply with the railroads that operate with or own track exclusive with the general railroad system of the transportation unless non-track accident train incident involves the in-service on the track equipment. Definition: used in this part, accidents or incidents any impact between the railroad on track with equipment or the highway highway use for the railway, highway, rail, grade crossing. The highway uses include the automobiles, buses, trucks, motorcycles, bicycles, farm vehicles, pedestrians, and all other modes of the transportation, motorized and unmotorized. Any collision, derailment, fire, explosion, act of God, other event involving operation for the railroad on track equipment, the standing of the moving, that results in reportable damage greater than the current reporting threshold of the railroad on track equipment, signals, track structures, and roadbed. Each death and injury, occupation, and illness, in new case of the needs of the general reporting criteria listed in Statute 22519 D1 through D6 is an event with exposure arising from the operation of the railroad, discerning cause of the resulting in the condition with a discerning cause of the significant aggravation to pre-existing injury with illness. The event of the exposure arising from the operation of the railroad needs only to be one of the discernible cause of the need, not to be the sole predominant cause. The occupational illness, a occupational injury or illness means abnormal condition of the or disorder. A railroad employee that requires of the employee to examine and treat with a qualified health care professional, regardless of whether or not it meets the general reporting criteria in Statute 22519 D1 through D6. The railroad claims the railroad otherwise knowledge of the event with the exposures arising in the operation of the railroad as a discerning cause of the abnormal condition of the disorder. Or an accountability rail accident incident means any derailment, regardless of whether or not it causes any damage or any collision with a highway, grade crossing accident incident, obscure accidents, other impact, fire, violent rupture, exposure, detonation, act, or guide with other incident revolving operation of the railroad on track, standing of the moving that results in damage of the railroad track and equipment, standing of the moving signal track structures, roadbed, the damage impairs the functional safety of the railroad on track equipment, standing on the moving signals, track, and structures on the roadbed. Covered data means for the information that meets the reported FRA on the part of the railroad employee, injury, illness, case of the reportable exclusively covered the physician, other licensed health care of the professional recommended in writing of the employee to take one more of the day away from the work with the employee instead of the reports of the work, or would have to been reported that he or she has been scheduled to take no days away from the work connection within the injury or illness. The employee work restricted due to the one more day with the employees instead of the work unrestricted or would have been unrestricted he or she has been scheduled. Takes no day of the restricted work activities in connection with the injury or an illness. Or the employee takes over-the-counter medication if the dosage is equal or greater to the minimum of the prescription strength, whether or not employee actually takes the medication or made one-time topical application prescription strength medication injury. Medication to the employee's injury. Day away from work means a day away from the work as described in paragraph 1 of the definition of the paragraph 1 does not apply for the day away from the work solely reporting of the purpose of the described in paragraph 2 of the definition. The countless days includes all calendar days, and regardless of whether the employee was normally be scheduled to work on these days, any of the days, holiday, rest days, vacation days, beginning with the first calendar day with the railroad employee has been examined by a physician or other licensed healthcare professional, PLHCP, or diagnosed with a work-related injury, in particular with the terms meaning. Each in the calendar day that the employee reason associated with his or her condition does not report to work or would have been unable to report have he or she has been scheduled, if not reporting results from the PLHCP written recommendation not to work or railroad instruction not to work, and if the injury or illness otherwise reportable. Is otherwise reportable, or a minimum one calendar day of the PHLCP. The reason for the associated employee condition recommended for the writing employee take one more day of the way from work. But the employee instead report to the work or work would be have reported he or she has been scheduled. The paragraphs intended to take account of covered data of the cases that are non-covered with the data that independently report from the other service reason the medical treatment the day of the restricted work activity. Requirements to report a minimum one calendar day is intended to give the railroad and discretion to report up to the total number of days by the PLHCP. Duty of restricted work activity means any duty of restricted work as described in paragraph 1 of the definition. Paragraph 1 does not apply to a day of restricted work activity solely for the reporting purposes as described. And paragraph 2 of the definition, both cases, the work restriction must have the effect of one more employee's routine justification. Those work activities regularly performed at least once per week, preventing the employee from the working of the full work day that he or she would otherwise work. For the purposes of the definition, countless days included all calendar days, regardless of whether the employee would normally be scheduled for the work on these days, weekend days, holidays, rest days, vacation days, beginning on the first calendar day after the railroad employee has been examined by a physician or other licensed healthcare professional or PLJCP diagnosed with a work-related injury or illness, particularly with the terms of the means. Each calendar day with the employee for reasons associated with his or her condition when the work restricted duty or would have work restricted duty he or she would have been scheduled if the restriction results from the PLJCP written recommendation of work of the restricted duty, railroad instruction of work of the restricted duty if the injury or illness is otherwise reportable. To a minimum of 1 calendar day by the PHLCP with the provision associated with the employee's condition recommended with the writing with the employee work restricted duty for 1 or more days, but the employee instead of the work with the unrestricted work have the work unrestricted he or she has been scheduled. The paragraph intended to take the account of the covered data of the case, also non-covered data cases that are independently reportable for some other reason. The day restricted with the medical treatment with the other day restricted work activity. Requirement to report a minimum of 1 calendar day is intended to give the railroad the discretion of the report over the total number of the days recommended by the PLHCP. Discern with the cause made the casual factor capable of being recognized with the sense of the understanding of the event with the exposure arising from the operation railroad. Discerning with the cause for the discernible cause of the injury with the illness is considered with the circumstances more likely than not that the injury exposure is caused with the injury and illness event with the exposure arising from the operation railroad need not to be sole and predominantly significantly caused with the injury or illness so long that it causes the contribution factor. Employee human factor includes any accident signified by the train accident code listed under the train operation human hours. Human factors incurred with the FRA gave with the preparing accident incident reports, except for those train accidents caused in code pertaining to the non-railroad workers. For purposes of definition, employee includes the classification of work on duty employee. Employee noted non-duty work over the duty with the contractor work over the duty and the volunteers. Our established means of single physical location work report where the railroad business is conducted, where services operation are performed. Example, the division office, general office, the repair maintenance faculty, major switching yard or terminal for employees who are engaged in a dispersed operations such as signal or track maintenance workers as an established and typical location where the assignments are initially made, oversight of the responsibility exists, e.g. that the establishment where the signal of the supervisor or roadmaster is located. Event and exposure includes the incident, accident, activity, and occurrence. The event exposure arising for the operation of the railroad means when the restricted for the person who is not an employee of the railroad, a person who is on the property of their own leased, maintained, operated by the railroad. An event exposure related to the performance of the railroad transportation business. A person who is not properly owned or at least maintained operated over the railroad, an event with exposure directly resulting from one or more of the following railroad operations. A train accident, train incident involving the railroad and release of hazardous material on the railway car for the possession of railroad and other dangerous commodities related to the performance of the rail transportation business. 2. With respect to the person who is in employ with the railroad, an event with exposure work related to the FRA represented with the Associated Administrative Safety, the FRA with the Associated Administrative Delegated, including qualified state inspector acting in the Part 212 with the Chapter of the Chief Counsel with the FRA with the Chief of the Council Delegate. 6. General reporting criteria means the criteria in Statute 225-19 D1 through D6 highway grade crossing meaning location with a public highway road street with a private road with including associated sidewalk crosses one or more railroad tracks at the grade. 2. A location where the pathway expressly authorized for the public authority of the railroad carried with a dedicated with one use for the down vehicle or traffic, including pedestrian bicycles, others not associated with a public highway, road, street, or private roadway crosses one or more railroad tracks at the grade. The term sidewalk means for the portion of the street where the curb line or the lateral line of the roadway adjacent from the property line of easements for the private property for the portion of the street that is paved, improved, intended for the use of the pedestrians. Injury and illness means that an abnormal condition, disorder, injuries include causes such as not limited to cut, fracture, sprain, amputation. Illnesses include, but acute or chronic illnesses such as not limited to the skin disease, respiratory disease, poisoning, musculoskeletal disorder, and also injury, illness, pain is injury, illness when it's sufficient and serve to meet the general reporting criteria of Statute 225-19 D1 through D6. Joint operation means the rail operation conducted with the track even jointly in common with the two or more railroads submitted subject to the part with the operation of the train, locomotive, car, other than on track with equipment in one yard railroad over the track on another railroad. Medical removal means the medical removal of medical surveillance requirements of Occupational Health and Safety Health Administration standard with the Title 29, Part 2, 1910, with the effect during the calendar years 2002. If even in the case during does not meet the general reporting medical treatment means any medical case for the treatment beyond the first aid, regardless of the provider such treatment. The medical treatment does not include diagnostic procedures such as X-rays, drawing blood samples. Medical the treatment also does not include counseling. Musculoskeletal disorder, or MSD, means the disorder of muscle and nerve tendons and ligaments, joints, cartilage, spinal disc. The term does not include the disorder caused by slips and trips involved motor vehicles, accidents, other similar accidents. Examples of musculoskeletal disorder include carpal tunnel syndrome, rotor cuff syndrome, Dr. Quervain's syndrome disease, trigger finger, tarsal tunnel syndrome, sciatica, epididymis, tetanus, Raynaud's phenomena, carpet layers, knee, and herniated spinal disc or lower back pain. Needle, stick, or sharp injury means of the laceration, puncture, or scrap of the needle or other sharp object result of the contamination with another person's blood or other potential infectious material, even with the case of the doesn't meet one of the general reporting criteria. A new case means a case which is either injured or in which either the injured or the ill person has not previously experienced a personal injury or illness for the same type of effect for the same part of the body, or injured or illness previously experienced the reported injury with illness for the same type of effect for the same part of the body, but has recovered completely. All signs and symptoms disappear, but the previous injury with the illness event with exposure arising from the operation of the railroad discerning cause of the signs and or systems will reappear. Non-train incident means an event with a result of reportable casualty that does not involve the movement of the on-track equipment nor cause of the report damage or threshold establishment of the train accident. Occupational hearing loss means to diagnose the occupational hearing loss with a physician other than licensed or care professional where the employee's audiogram reveals the work-related standard threshold, at least 10 decibel changing in hearing threshold relative to the baseline audiogram for the employee. The hearing in one of the both ears, the employee total hearing level of 25 decibels or more above the audiometric zero, average 2,300, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 hertz of the same ear for the standard threshold shift. Occupational illness means an abnormal condition, disorder diagnosed by a physician or licensed healthcare professional. Any person that falls under the definition for the classified of the work duty employees or other resulting injury, discerning cause of the environmental factor associated with the person's railroad employment, including but not limited to acute chronic illness and disease that may be caused by the inhalation, absorption, and ingestion of the direct contact. Occupational tuberculosis means the occupational exposure of the employee to any of the known activities of the tuberculosis of the employee subsequently developing tuberculosis infection and evidence of positive skin test diagnostic by a physician or other licensed healthcare professional, even if the case does not meet one of the general reporting criteria. Privacy concerns of the case occupational injury illness following the list. An injury illness to the intimate body part of the reproductive system. Injury or illness resulting with sexual assault, mental illness, HIV, hepatitis, tuberculosis, needle stick sharp injuries, other injuries and illnesses employees independently with a voluntarily request the writing of the railroad purporting officer that his or her injury is not to be posted. Person includes all categories and entities covered within Title 1 U.S. Standard Code, including but not limited to the railroad, any manager, supervisor, official with the employee, agent of the railroad, with the owner, manufacturer, leaser, or lesser, railroad equipment, tractor with the facility, with the passenger, with any transportation, transport, trespasser, non-trespasser, any independent with the contractor providing goods and services with the railroad, volunteer providing with the goods and services with the railroad, and employee with such owner, manufacturer, leaser, or lesser independent contractor. Qualified healthcare professional is a healthcare professional operating with the scope of his or her license, registration, certification, in addition with licensed physicians. The term isolate includes members of this occupation associated with patient care treatment with the chiropractors, podiatrists, physicians, associations, psychologists, and dentists. Railroads means a railroad carrier. Railroad carrier means a person provided with the railroad transportation. Railroad transportation means any form of non-highway ground transportation that runs on rails, electromagnetic roadway, including commuter and other short-haul railroad passengers, metropolitan suburban areas, as well. The commuter railroad services was operated Consolidated Rail Operator Corporation on January 1st, 1979. High-speed ground transportation system that connect metropolitan areas with regard whether the new technology is not associated with the traditional railroad. Such terms does not include the rapid transition operation with the urban area that are not connected with the general railroad system transportation. Significant aggravation of pre-existing injury with illness means that aggravation, pre-existing injury, illness discernibly caused by the event with exposure arising from the operation of railroad results, and one with respect to any of the person death provided with the pre-existing injury or illness would likely to have resulted in death but for the event exposure. 2. Loss of the consciousness provided that the pre-existing injury or illness would likely have related in lost consciousness for the event of the exposure. 3. The medical treatment in the case of the non-medical treatment needed for the injury, illness, and before the event of the exposure, change of the course of the medical treatment that was being provided before the event of the exposure. With respect to the railroads employ one or more of the days away from worker days, the restricted other days job transfer than otherwise would not have occurred but for the event of the exposure. Significant change of the damage caused of the reportable railway equipment accidents and incidents means at least 10% of the variance between the damage amount reported by the FRA current cost of the figures. Significant change in the number of the reportable days away from the work of the days restricted. Means at least 10% variance the number of actual reportable days away from the work of the days restricted compared with the number of the days always reported. Significant illness means an illness involving the cancer, chronic, and irreversible disease such as biosinosis, silicosis, and the disease does not result in death, a day away from work, restricted work with job transfer, medical treatment, or loss of consciousness. Significant injury means of an injury involving the fractured bone, fractured or cracked bone, punctured an eardrum. The injury does not result in the death, the day away from work, restricted work, job transfer, medical treatment, or loss of consciousness. Suicide data means the data regarding the death an individual will do with the indication individual's commission suicide will determine with the corner of the public policy of the officer or other public authority. Injury individual do the individual's attempt to commission with the suicide determined with the public policy of the police officer or with the other public authority. Only the death and injury with the individual who committed the suicide act of suicide data. Therefore, casualty of the person caught with the suicide act with another person will not consider the suicide data. Train accident means in a collision in the realm of the fire explosion, active with God or other involved in the operation for the railroad on track standing. Removing the result of the damage greater than the current reporting threshold railroad on track equipment, the signal of the tracking track structures on road bed. Train incident means an event that involved with the movement of the on-track equipment result of the reportable casualties does not cause reportable damage above the current threshold established with the train accidents. Work environment means the establishment of other locations where one or more railroad employees work are present of the condition for their employment. The work environment includes not only physical location but also equipment and materials possessed for the use of the employees during the current of his or her work, the activity of the railroad employees associated with his or her work, whether on or off the railroad property. Work-related means an event with exposure occurring within the work environment and injury, illness assumed with the work-related within the event of exposure occurring with the working environment is discerned with the cause of the resulting condition with a discernible cause of the significant aggravation of pre-existing injury or illness. Casual event with exposure need not to be peculiarly occupational so long as it occurs at work. For example, the casual event of exposure being outside of the employer's control, such as lightning striking, involve the activities that occur with the work that are not directly productive with the horseplay, involve the activities that are not particular to work, such as walking on level floor, bending down, climbing stairs, sneezing, such as accidents, activities along with the normal body with the movements are considerable and considered events. So that long as the event with exposure occurred with the work, the discernible cause of the injury or illness, the injury or illness is work-related. It does not matter whether they are other bigger or cause of it as well. The activity at the work is different from the actions performed outside work. If an injury is within presumption of work-relatedness, the employer can rebut work-relatedness only with showing that the case falls within the exemption listed in Statute 225.15 in case for the no obvious whether the precipitation event exposure occurred with the work outside of the work. An employer must evaluate the employee's work duties environmental to decide whether it is more likely that it's not an event with exposure work of at least one cause of the injury and the illness. Statute 225.6 Consolidated Reporting. Apparent with the corporation request for the writing of the FRA treatment that commonly controlled the railroad carriers where they operated with a single seamlessly integrated with the United States rail system, a single railway carrier for the purpose of this part. Written request must include the following: a listed subsidiary railroads controlled with the parent corporation, explanation of how the subsidiary railroads operate with a single seam and integrated with the United States railroad system. The request must be sent with the FRA docket clerk with the FRA Railroad Administration, U.S. Department of Transportation, RCC 10, the Mail Stop 10 West Building, 3rd floor, room 431-109, 1200 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast, Washington, D.C. 20590. Each request is received and should announce the written acknowledged in writing. The acknowledgement should contain with the docket number to sign with the request for this date, with the date, with the request was received. The FRA will notify the applicant and parent corporation agent if the decision within 90 days of the receipt of the application. The FRA approved the request for the parent corporation must enter with a written agreement with the FRA specified subsidiaries, including the railroad system agreement, to assume the responsibility of compliance for the part all named subsidiaries making up the system council, consisting with a guarantee with a monetary penalty with assessment and other liabilities owed by the United States government that incurred with the name of the subsidiaries violating the federal accident incident reporting requirements. Any change in subsidiaries making the railroad system requires immediate notification to the FRA of the execution amendment of the agreement. The executed agreement will be published in the docket. The 225.7 public examination use of the reports. Accidents and incident reports made by railroads in compliance with the rules shall be available to the public in manner prescribed in Part 7 of the title of the incident reports may be inspected by the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, the Office of Safety of the West Building, 3rd floor, 1200 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast Washington, D.C. 20590. Written request for the copy of the report shall be addressed as Freedom of the Information Act, coordinated with the Officer of Chief Counsel, Federal Railroad Administration Act, U.S. Department of Transportation, RCC 10, Mail Stop 10, West Building, 3rd floor, room 433, 4037, 1200 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast Washington, D.C. 20590. Accomplishing, accompanied by the appropriate for the prescribed in Part 7 of the title of the facility, expedited, but the handling of each of the requests should be clearly marked Freedom of the Information Act. Request for the accident incident report for the additional information was submitted with the Freedom of Information Act. The request for the FRA website, fra.gov.us, Freedom of Information Act. B. Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 2090 provides 20903 provided with the monthly reports filled with the railroads under statute 22511 may not be admitted with the evidence to be for any purpose of any action. Damage is grown out any with the manners maintained with the monthly reports for employee human factor and attachment notice of employee supplemented known as SU 22512 with the report in railroad accident incident for the FRA pursuing the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 20901 and shall not admit this evidence as you for the purpose of any of the suit action the damage is growing out of any manner mentioned in said report in Title 29 U.S. Standard Code 20903. Alright, 225.9 telephonic reports of certain accidents, incidents, and other events. Type of the accidents, incidents, other events to be reported. Certain death or injury. Each railroad must report immediately as prescribed paragraph of the B through D for the section whether it's an alert and occurrence of an accident, incident arising from the operation of the railroad or event of exposure that may have arisen for the operation of the railroad. The result: death of a railroad passenger or railroad employee, death of the employee of the contractor railroad performing work for a railroad on the property owned, leased, or maintained by the contracting railroad, death or injury of 5 or more persons. Certain train accidents, train incidents, each of the railroad must report immediately as prescribed in paragraph B or D of this section whenever they've learned for the occurrence of any of the following events of the road from the operation of the railroad. 1. A train accident with the result of the serious injury of 2 or more train crew members of the passenger required with admission of the hospital. A train accident resulting in the evacuation of the passenger train. 3. An train facility resulting in a train accident, train incident with a highway grade crossing with a death occurred occurred with a 24 hours accident incidents. 4. Train incident and accident include damages based on preliminary gross estimated over $150,000 more than railroad and non-railroad property. More to the railroad and non-railroad property, or a train accident resulting in damage of $25,000 or more passenger trains, including railroad and non-railroad property. The train accident of the following passenger ship of the main line with the dispatching railroad must report immediately as prescribed in paragraph B through D of this section whenever the learns of the occurrence of any of the train accidents reportable. The requirements of accident incidents under Title 2511 and 2519C. That involved the collision or derailment of the main line with the scheduled passenger ship that follows the main line with the scheduled passenger ship. The method of reporting telephonic report required by the section shall be made by the telephone for toll-free telephone National Response Center area code 800-424-8880-2 800-424-0201 through one of the sample telephone numbers 800-424-0201 National Response Center. Also received notification at rail accidents and for the National Transportation Safety Board, Title 49 CFR Part 840, restoration, the research special programs and administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation Hazardous Material Regulation, Title 49 CFR 171-15 FRA locomotive standard required these certain locomotive accidents for the report with the telephone number to the National Regulatory Response Center at the same toll-free number 800-424-0201, Title 49 CFR 229-17. C. Contents of the report. Each report must state the name of the railroad, name of the title of the telephone number of the individual making the report, time of the date, location of the accident, incident, circumstance of accident, incident, number of the person killed with the injured, available to estimate with the railroad, non-railroad property. Alright, timing of the report to the extent of the necessity of the report of the accident incident depends upon the determining of the fact that estimated the property damage report will considerably immediately if made as soon as possible following the time of the determination of the estimate is made, because responsibility have been made with whichever that comes forward, taking into consideration health safety of those affected with the accident incident, including the actions to protect the environment. The National Train Safety Board has other specific requirements regarding timelines reporting in Title 49 CFR Part 840. Alright, Part 225 of the 1, reporting accidents, incidents. Each rail subject to the report shall submit with the FRA's monthly report all accidents, incident described below, highway, railway, crossing, accident, incidents in Statute 225-19, rail equipment accidents, incidents described in 225-19, death and injury, occupational illness, accidents described in 225-19. The report shall be made with the forms described in 225-21, hard copy, alternately mean with the optical, meaning electronic submission with the V by the internet described in 225-37, and shall be submitted within 30 days expiration month. During the accident incident occurred, but the reports shall be completed and required with the current FRA guide. Within the copy of the FRA guide may be obtained with the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, Office of Safety Analysis, RSS 22, Mail Stop 25, West Building, 3rd floor, room with W33, 107, 1200, New Jersey, on the Southeast, Washington, D0590, downloaded with the FRA Office of Safety Analysis website, safetydata.fra.gov/Office of Safety, and click here on the change of the railroad incident and the record keeping the reporting. 225-12, railroad equipment incident with reporting alleging an employee human factor as a cause, employee human factor attachment notice with employee and employee supplement. Railroad equipment accident involved the alleging employee human factor, completion of the employee human factor attachment, and reporting with the railroad equipment as accident incident with the FRA railroad site with the employee human factor as the primary cause of the contribution caused the extent. The railroad site of such employee human factor must complete with the accordance instruction for the form of the current of the FRA guide with preparing the accident incident reports, employee human factor attachment on the accident for the purpose of the section. Employee is defined as the worker on duty with the employee not on duty, worker on duty, contractor, worker on duty, volunteer. Notice intended to implicated implicated employees, except as provided in paragraph E through F of the section with such employees who act on a mission physical condition alleged by the railroad employee human factor that was primarily caused with the contribution caused with the railroad equipment accident incident, or whose name is listed in the employee human factor attachment for the accident for each of these railroad employees who would identify the railroad actual knowledge of the alleging railroad shall complete Part 1, notice for the railroad employee involved with the railroad equipment accident incident attributed with the employee human factor, the form FRA 618078, information regarding the accident in accordance with the instruction with the form of the current the FRA guide with the preparing accidents incident reports, hand delivery sent by the first class main postage prepaid with the employee with the 45 days for the end of the month of the rail equipment accidents incident occurred. A copy of the FRA Form 618788 with the railroad notice for the railroad involved with the railroad equipment accidents and for the tribute of the human factor employee statement of supplementing the railroad accident report with the Part 1 completed with the applicable employee accident. A copy of the railroad's railroad accident employee with the rep reporting and human factor attachment of the railway equipment and accident incident involved. If the accident was also reporting on a highway grade crossing the accident, a copy of the railway highway grade crossing accident and report of the incident. Joint operation reporting of the if reporting railroad makes allegation out of the paragraph 8 of the section concerning the employee and of the railroad, the employee of the railroad must promptly provide the name, the job title, the address, medical status, and the employee reasonable identified alleging railroad with the request of the alleged railroad. D. Related identification, with except for the provided with paragraph E and F of the section of the railroad initially unable to identify the particular railroad employee whose act or omission physical condition was cited by the railroad with the primary contribution code for the accident, with the subsequent make for the such identification of the railroad shall have submitted with the revised employee human factor attachment of the FRA immediately shall be submitted with the notice described in the paragraph E of the section of the employee within 15 days when the revised report is submitted. D.E.E. Deferred notification of medical grounds. The reporting railroad reasonable discretion of the deferred notification is implicated employee for the medical grounds. Implicated employees who died by time of the notice is ready to be sent. If implicated employee has died as a result of the accident and not noticed on the paragraph B, the address of the employee must not be sent to any of the persons. If implicated employee has died whenever the time of the notice is ready to be sent with the notice address for the employee is required. Employee statement supplementing railroad accident supplements or employee supplement. The employee statement of the supplemental railroad accident was voluntary, not mandatory submission. Supplement does not imply that the employee admits the endorsed for the railroad conclusion as to cover any other allegation. Although the supplement is completely optional and not required, the employee wishes to submit the supplemental ensure that after the receipt would properly place in the FRA file with the railroad's railway equipment accident incident report that will require to be reviewed by the railroad issue with the notice that the supplement must be made in Part 2 of the Form FRA 618078 entitled the notice of the railroad involved with the rail equipment accidents incidents attributed by the employee human. For employee accident incident attribution, employee human factor, employee statement to supplementing railroad accident following the instruction printed on these form of these instructions required within 30 days of the day of the notice of the hand delivered sent for third class most mail postage prepared with the employee except for the good shown of the original supplement of the filed by the FRA copy with the hand delivered to sent for the first class postage prepaid to the railroad will the issue notice that the railroad will have an opportunity to reassess its report in the FRA concerning the accident. 3. Information for the employee which holds from the railroad must not include the supplement and the employee wishes to provide confidential information to the FRA. The employee should not be used with the supplemental form of the Part 2 of the Form FRA 618078. Notice for the railroad employee involved with the railroad equipment accident incident attributed to the employee human factor. Employee statement supplementing railroad accident report rather provided with other confidential information, other means of the better employees can collective bargaining representative of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, Office of Safety and Analysis, the RRS 22, Middle Stop 25, West Building, 3rd floor with the room W33306 at 1200 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast Washington, DC 2059 0. Later should be included the name of the railroad making the allegations, date and place accidents for the railway equipment accidents incident number. H. Willful false statement penalties. If an employee chooses to submit a supplement to the FRA and all employees associated supplement must be true and correct for the best for the employee's knowledge on the behalf. Under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21301, 21302, and 21304, and a person willfully so falsely supplements for the FRA is subject to civil penalties. See Appendix A of this part. Any person who knowingly willfully files a false supplement is subject to the $5,000 fine or up to 2 years imprisonment, both under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21311. Alright, 2513, late report. Whenever the railroad discovered the report incident with the mistakes otherwise improperly operated with the improperly report with the regular month accident incident report with reporting covering the accident incident together with later explanation submitted immediately whenever the railroad received the partially fully completed employee statement supplementing railroad accident report Part 2 of the FRA Form 618078 with the response to the notice of the railroad employee Part 1 of the FRA Form FRA 618078 issued railroad mailed hand delivery for the employee of the railroad must promptly review the supplement based on the review of the reassess the accuracy validity of the railroad's equipment incident and the reports any other reports or records reporting with this part concerning the same accident including the employee human factor attachment making all justified revisions. Each of those reports recorded with the submitted amendments to reports of the FRA is submitted with a copy of the amendment of the rail equipment accident incident report employee human factor attachment highway grade crossing accident incident report with the accident on an accident to the employee. A second notice for the statute 22512 is not required for the employee. Is an employee who has never sent notice of the 22512 for the accident implicated the revised and the employee human factor attachment of the railroad must follow the procedure in 22512D. Alright, 22515, accident incidents not reported. The following accident incidents are not reportable with respect to the person, but other than railroad employee railroad is not reportable injury with other than occur at a highway. Rail grade crossing that is not involved with the presence of the operation on track of the equipment, the presence of the railroad employee with engaged with the operation with the railroad with the respect for the employees on duty. The railroad is not reported with the following injuries, illness with the railroad employee work on duty, employee class A if any of the conditions paragraph B if they're met. These exemptions apply only to the worker on duty, employee class A, but do not affect the railroad obligation to report for these injuries, illness with the other type of the person that's employee not on duty, the passenger B class B, the passenger on train class C, non-trespassers on railroad property class D, and trespassers on class E on railroad's obligation to obtain and maintain railroad employee injury illness record of the FRA Form 618098 and alternative railroad design form. The injury or illness occurred with the bout of the living quarter of the event with the exposure but not arising with the operation of the railroad will cause at the time of the injury or the illness the employee was present with the working environment as a member of the general public rather than as an employee, or the injury or the illness is caused with a motor vehicle accident other occurred with the company parking lot or company access road while the employee is commuting to or from work. Alright, C. With respect to the railroad employees on and off duty, the railroad does not respond reporting following injuries or illnesses of a railroad employee working on duty, employees Class A, and employee not on duty Class B. Any part of the following condition of the paragraph C are met. The injuries or illnesses involved with the symptoms of the surface of the result solely from the non-work related event and exposure related occurs outside of the work environment. The injury or illness result with a solely voluntarily participating with the illness program, the medical fitness of the recreation activities such as blood donation, physical examination, fill shot, exercise class, and racquetball or baseball. The injury or illness is solely with the result of the employee eating or drinking, preparing food, drink of the personal consumption. However, the employee is made with the ingestion, food contamination, workforce for the contamination such as lead, or gets food poisoning from the food supplied with the employer. The case would be considerable work-related reported as whether the work on duty employee Class A or employee not on duty Class B, depending on the employee's duty status. For the injury illness solely with the result of the employee doing personal task unrelated with their employment as established outside of the employee assigned as work hours. The injury illness solely with the result of the working and personal grooming, self-medication, non-work-related condition, intentionally self-inflicted, exempt from the FRA reporting of the purpose of the railroad shall not include any accountable, reportable injury, illness if the result of the suicide attached suicide. 6. The illness with the common cold flu with a note of the contingency such as tuberculosis, brucellosis, and hepatitis A with the plague with the considered work-related if the employee is infected at work. 7. The illness and mental illness will not be considered the work-related unless the employee voluntarily provides the employer with an opinion of the physician, other than licensed healthcare professional with the appropriate training and experience of the psychiatrist, psychiatric nurse practitioner, etc., stating that the employee has a mental illness that is work-related. Take work with respect to the contracted volunteer railroad does not report with the injury within contracted volunteers are listed in paragraph BC of this section. For this purpose, the paragraph only with the exemption list for the paragraph B and C with the reference work of the environment construed to mean for the contracted volunteers only with the property owned, leased, and operated over the maintained by the railroad. Alright, E. With respect to the railway equipment incident, if the railroad is not reporting the railway equipment accident incident with the condition of the paragraphs are met with the exemption does not affect the railroad's obligation to maintain McCracken's accidents incident with the required info statute 225 form FRA F16180.97 initial railway equipment accident incident report record cars derailed with the industry tax not railroad employees non-railroad employees vandalism provided there is no involvement of the railroad employees. And 2. Damage the outside of the surface of the cars resulting from high water flooding and empties placed in the storage of the separate track exemption does not apply with such cars and placed into the moving consists of the result of the damage of reportable railway equipment and accidents report. Alright, doubtful case of alcohol and drug involvement. The reporting officer of the railroad ordinarily determine the reportability, non-reportability, accident incident after the examination of all the evidence available. The FRA, however, they cannot delegate authority to decide merits and judgment whether the facts are in dispute. In other such cases, the decision should be on that of the FRA. Even though there will be no witness to the accident incident, if there is an evidence indicating that the reportable accident incident may occur, a reported accident incident must be made. All accidents incidents reported with claim not admitted by the railroad are given by the special examination by the FRA with the further inquiry may be ordered. Accident incidents accepted the reportable tabulated including various statistical statements issued by the FRA. The denial of the acknowledgement refusal to admit of the responsibility by the railroad does not exclude the accident incident monthly annual figures and the facts stated by the railroad that retaining with the refute the claim of the injured personnel gave in consideration when the facts seemed deficient in support rail position in the case of the non-allocated with the reporting railroad. Alright, 225.18 alcohol drug involvement. In preparing with the form FRA F16185 the railroad equipment accident involved incident report on this paragraph the railroad shall make with the specific inquiry of the make of the reasonable under the circumstances possible involvement of the alcohol and drug with the use of the impairment of such accident incident. The railroad complied with the possession of any form information whatever whether they're not conforming to concerning with the alleged drug or the use of the impairment of the employee who is involved arguably could be said and had to have been involved with the accident incident. The railroad shall report an alleged use of the impairment and provided with the concurrent FRA guide. If the railroad is in possession of such information but does not believe the alcohol or drug impairment was primarily contributed to the cause of the accident incident, the railroad shall include the following narrative statements such as report, have brief explanation of the basis of such determination. B. For any of the training accidents within the requirement of post-accident training testing under Statute 219-201, the chapter of the railroad shall amend with the form FRA F6180.54 railroad equipment accidents and report any report on required in Title 49 CFR 219-209B pertaining to the failure of obtaining samples of post-accident toxicological testing. For any other training, non-training incident, the report shall be provided with available information concerning possible involvement in the alcohol, drug, or even impairment such accidents involvement. Providing information required by this section of railroad shall not disclose the information concerning use of the controlled substances determined by the railroad medical review officers to have been consistent with the Title 49 CFR Part 219-103. 225.19 Primary groups of accidents incidents. For the reporting purpose of reportable accidents and incidents divided in three categories: highway, railway, grade crossing rail equipment, and Group 2 and Group 3 death, injury, occupational illness. Group 1, highway rail grade crossing. Each highway rail grade crossing accident incident reported with the FRA Form 61857, regardless of the extent of the damage or whether casualty occurred. In addition, whether the highway rail grade crossing accident incident result in damage, whether the current reporting threshold of the railroad on-track equipment signal track of the track structure roadbed, the accident incident shall be reported to the FRA on the FRA Form 61805 for reporting purposes of damages, including labor costs and other costs of repair and replace of the of the damage of the track equipment, signals, and track of the track structure of the roadbed, and do not include the cost of the clearing of the wreck. Group 2, rail equipment. The rail equipment accident incident with a collision, derailment, the fire, explosion, and the accident with the guide, for the other events involved in the operation on track equipment, the standing of the movement, the resulting with the damage higher of the current reporting threshold. $67,000 for the calendar years of 2002 through 2005, $7,700 for the calendar years 2006, $8,200 for the calendar 2000, $8,500 for the calendar year 2008, and $8,900 for the calendar years 2009, $9,200 for the calendar year 2010, $9,400 for the calendar 2011, $9,500 for the calendar year 2012, $9,900 for the calendar year 2013, $10,500 for the calendar year 2014, $10,500 for the calendar year 2015. To the railroad on-track signal track for the track structure of the roadbed, including the labor cost of the costs incurring the nature, new equipment and material will be provided with more than one railroad, including involved in the accident and incident with the reporting threshold calculating, including the damage suffered by all the railroads involved with the statute 225-23 with the joint operation reporting threshold reviewed periodically and necessary with adjusted every year. Group 3, death, injury, or occupational illness. Each death or injury, occupational illness is a new case meets the general reporting criteria listed in paragraph D1 through D6. The section shall be reported with the FRA Form 61805A. Railroad injury, illness, summary with the continuation statement of the event and exposure for the operation of the railroad, discerning the cause of the resulting condition, determining the cause of significant aggravation, pre-existing injury, illness. The exposure for the operation railroad need not only to be concerned with the cause, need not to be sole predominant cause. General illness or illness, injury or illness reporting criteria as follows: death to any person, injury to any person that results in 1 in medical treatment, 2 the significant injury diagnosed by the physician or other licensed healthcare professional, even if it does not result in death or medical treatment, loss of consciousness any person, 3 loss of consciousness, 3 injury to the railroad employee that is a result of 1 a day with work restricted work activity, job transfer, 3 significant injury diagnosed by the physician or other licensed healthcare professional if it does not result in death and medical treatment, loss of consciousness, stay away from the work, restricted work activity, job transfer, the railroad employee. 4 occupational illness of the railroad employee, the result of the day of the work with restricted work activity, job transfer. 3 the loss of continuous witness. 4 medical treatment. 5 significant illness, railroad employee diagnosed physician, other licensed healthcare professional, even if it does not result in the death away from the work, restricted work with activity, job transfer, medical treatment, loss of consciousness. 6 the injury or illness or injury that meets the application of any of the following specific criteria for the criteria named listed as a sharp injury with the railroad medically removal of the railroad employee, occupational hearing or loss of railroad employees. The occupation tuberculosis of the railroad employee, musculoskeletal disorder, railroad employee disorder, the reportable under one or more of the general reporting criteria is covered. data case. And the reporting threshold is $6,700 calendar year 2002, 2005 $7,500 in the calendar year 2006 $8,200, calendar year 2000 $8,500 for the calendar year $8,900 for the calendar year 2009, $9,200 for the calendar year 2010, $9,400 for the calendar year 2011, $9,500 for the calendar years 2012, $9,900 for the calendar years 2013, and $10,500 for the calendar 2014. $10,500 for the calendar 2015. Proceed to determine the reporting threshold calendar years of 2006 beyond a period of the paragraph 1.8 of the Appendix B to Part 225. Are the following forms copied of the FRA gap preparing accidents incident report may be obtained by the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Road Administration, Office of Safety of the Analysis of the RS 222, Mail Stop 25 West Building, 3rd floor, Room 430, 3107 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast Washington, D.C. 20590 for the download of the FRA Office of Safety Analysis of the website, Safety tab of the FRA.gov, the Office of Safety. Click and clear on the high change of the railroad accident incident recording, reporting. For the form FRA 6180-054 with the railroad equipment accidents report for the form FRA 6180-54 should be used with the report and reportable requirement incident occurred during the preceding month. The form FRA 6185-55, the injury with the illness summary of the form FRA 6180-55 must be filed each month evenly. The no reportable accident incident occurred during the month covered. Each report must include an oath of verification made by the proper officer of the reporting railroad as provided with the attestation of the form. The no reportable accident incident occurred during the month. The fact must be stated on the form. All railroad subject to this part shall also show that the form of the total number of the freight train miles, passenger freight train miles, yard switching train miles, and other train miles during the ride of the month. During the run of the month. Form FRA 6180-55A, railroad injury with illness continuation form. FRA 6180-55A shall be used for the reportable fatalities, injuries, occupational illness that occurred during the preceding month. See the form FRA 6180-56 annual railroad reporting manual and man hours and state with a form FRA 6180-56 shall be submitted as part of the monthly railroad injury illness summary form FRA 6180-55 for the month of December each year. Alright, for the form FRA 6180-57 highway rail grade crossing accident incident, the FRA form F618-57 shall be used to report each of the highway grade crossing accident incident will occur during the preceding month. Form FRA 6180-81 employee human factor attachment form FRA 6180-81 shall be used with the railroad as a supplement railroad equipment accident incident report form FRA 6180-54 reporting all requirement rail equipment accident incident with a attributed to the employee human factor. The form shall be completed in accordance with the instruction printed on the form of the current with the FRA 4 guide with the preparing accident incident report. The form shall be attached with the railway equipment accident incident report that shall be substituted with the 30 day after the expiration of the month in which the accident incident occurred. The form FRA 6184-78 notice of the railroad employee involved with the railroad equipment accident incident attributed with the employee human factor employee statement and supplementing railroad accident report. The railroad is alleged for the employee human factor attachment. In the railroad equipment accident incident report, the act of the mission, physician, condition, with specific employment, the primary contribution covered the railroad equipment accident incident. Railroad should complete with the Part 1 form FRA 6180-78. We notify each of the such and identified with the railroad has made the allegation that an employee has the right to submit the FRA, but the railroad shall submit an entire form of the parts of that 1 and 2. Employees employed with a statement supplementing the railroad accident report. Employee supplement is complete with the option of the employee. However, the employee desires to make the statement about the accident will become part of the railroad's railroad equipment accident report. The employee shall have the complete employee submittal in a form Part 2 with the form F6180-78, and then shall submit the original entire form of the Part 1, Part 2, add the attachment of the FRA shall submit the copy of the same of the railroad to issue the notice Part 1. From the FRA 6180-98, the railroad employee injury illness record of the form FRA 6188-98, the alternative railroad design record shall be used with the railroad to record all reportable accountability injury and illness railroad employees. Each of the establishment of the record shall be completed, maintained in accordance with the requirements set forth in 225.25. FRA form 6180-97 initial rail equipment accident incident record. The form FRA 6180-97 alternative railroad design record should be used with the railroads record all the reportable accountable railroad equipment accidents for each of the establishment. These records should be completed with maintaining accordance with the requirements set forth in Statute 225. J. The form FRA Form 6180-107, an alternative record of the illness claim with the work related to the FRA Form 6180-107. An alternative railroad design record may be used with the railroad in lieu of Form 6180-98 with the railroad injury or illness record. Described in paragraph H of the section to the record, record each illness claimed by the employee to be work-related that is reported to the railroad, which where there is insufficient information for the railroad to determine whether the illness is work-related. The record shall be completed with the retained in accordance with the requirements set forth in 225.25 and 225.27. K for the form FRA F6188 6180 150, the human highway user injury inquiry form. The form FRA F6180 105 0 shall be sent with every potential injured highway user there with the representative of the highway rail grade crossing incident with the highway user died and the result of the highway grade crossing accident incident with the railroad must not send with the form to any of the personal railroad shall hand deliver the sent in first class mail letter within the reasonable time period following the day of the highway grade crossing accident incident. The form shall be sent along with the cover letter of the prepared pre-address return of envelope. The form of the cover letter shall be completed with accordance with the instruction contained with the current with the FRA guide with the preparing the accident incident report. The response with the highway user voluntarily non-mandatory. The railroad shall move the response with the highway user to comply with the stated part 225 of the accident incident report according requirements. Section 225.23 Joint Operations. Any reportable death, injury, illness for the employee arising from the accident incident revolving in the joint operation must be reported with the FRA Form 6180-55A by the employing railroad. In all cases involving the joint operation, each of the railroad must report with the form FRA 6180-55A with the casualties on all persons on the train other than the train equipment. The casualty of the railroad employee, which may be reported to the employee railroad regardless of whether the employees were on or off duty. Casualties of all other persons on the train on track equipment must be reported in the form FRA 6180-55A. Maybe the railroad meet train equipment. As involved any person from the unconscious dead in such condition arose for the operation of the railroad accident adjacent with the premises or right over the railway having the track maintenance for the responsibility must be reported with the railroad form F6180-55A. In the rail equipment accident incident involving the joint operation railroad responsible for carrying the operation maintenance for the track of the accident incident occurred with the other railroad is directly involved with the accident incident. Each of them must report an accident incident form FRA 6180-54. Railroad record keeping. Each of the railroads shall maintain either the railroad employee injury with illness record with the form FRA 6180-98, an alternative railroad design record to describe in paragraph B of the section poor reportable accountability injuries, illness of the employees. Each railroad establishment where such employees are reported, including but not limited to the operation division, general office, major installations such as the locomotive of the car repair construction facilities. B. The alternative railroad design record should be in lieu of the railway employee injury illness record of the form FRA 6180-98 described in paragraph A of the section. Any such alternative record shall contain all the information required on the report railroad injury or in the illness record. Illness record is although the information displayed in the different order for the railroad employee injury and the illness record, in order for the information shall be consistent with one such record and another such record. The order shall show them with the railroad shall consist of each of the railroad reporting establishment. Railroads may list additional information for the alternative record beyond the information required for the railroad employee injury or illness record. The alternative record should contain a minimum of the following information: name of the accident, name of the railroad case incident, the full name of the railroad employee, date of the railroad employee, gender of the railroad employee, and employer, the identification number, day of the railroad employee was hired, home address of the railroad employee, including the street address, city, state, zip code, and home telephone number, the area code, name of the facility where the railroad employee normally reports to work, address of the facility where railroad employees normally reports to work, and including a street address, city, state, and zip code. Job titles: railroad employees department assigned specific site where the accident incident exposure occurred, but including the city, state, and zip code, date of the time, the occurrence of military time, or 8 p.m. p.m. time the employee shift began, or military time, a.m. p.m. where the employee was on permissible injury or illness condition occurred, whether the employee was on or off duty, the day and time of the employee notification, company personal condition for the military, a.m. p.m. Name of the title, railroad official office is noted. Description of general activities employees will engage with the prior injury, illness, and condition. Description of all the factors associated with the case to understand how it occurred and include the discussion sequence events leading up to it and the tools, machinery, process, material, environmental conditions, etc. involved. Description in detail that the injury and illness that the employee sustained, including the body of the affected with the recurrence listed for the day of the last occurrence. Notification of all the persons organized and evaluate the treaty with the condition. Both include the facility and provide with the complete address. 4. Description of all the procedure, medication, therapy, and use of the recommended of the treatment of the condition, extent, outcome of the injury, of the illness to show the following applicability: fatality, enter the date of the death, restricted work, number of the days beginning with the date, the occupational illness, the day of the initial diagnosis, instruction to obtain the prescription, medication, receive the prescription, and for one or more days of the way from the work provided, the number of the days away from being in the date, for that beginning date, medical treatment beyond the first day, the hospitalization treatment as an inpatient, multiple treatment therapy session, loss of the consciousness, 10. Transfer another job, termination, employees to 11. Significant injury or illness of railroad employees. And 12. Needle, stick, sharp injury to the railroad employees, medical removal of the railroad employee, occupational hearing loss of the railroad employee, occupational tuberculosis of the railroad employee, musculoskeletal disorder of the railroad employee, musculoskeletal disorder report under the one or more of the general reporting criteria. Each railroad shall indicate the railroad injury with the illness of the summary continuations form C sheet with the FRA form 61855A has been filled out. The FRA illness, injury or illness, the form FRA form 61855A was not filed with the FRA. Then the railroad shall provide with the explanation for the basis for the decision. 27. The reporting railroad shall indicate the injured railroad employee with the provided with the opportunity to review his or her file. The railroad shall identify the preparer's name and the title, telephone number, the area code, and the day of the record initially signed and completed. Each of the railroad shall provide with the employee upon request a copy of the injury, either a completed railroad employee injury or illness record form 61898, alternative railroad design record as described in paragraphs A and B of the section, as well as the copies of the form of the report required to maintain with the files pertaining to the employee's other work-related injury illness. Alright, each railroad shall maintain initial rail equipment accident incident report record with the form SRI 61897 and alternative railroad design record described in paragraph E of the section, reportable and accountable to calculate collision, derailments, fires, explosion, acts of God, other events, including operation of the railroad on-track equipment, signal track equipment standing on the moving of the resultant damage of the railroad on-track equipment, signal track for the track structure, roadbed, insured labor costs, all other costs of the repairs, replacement, and kind of the railroad establishment of the workers' report of the work, including but not limited to operating division, general office of major installations such as locomotive, car repair, construction facilities. E. The alternative railroad design record may be used in lieu of the incident railroad equipment accident incident record of the form 61897, and any such alternative record should contain all the information required for the initial rail equipment accident incident record, although the information may be supplied in different order from the initial rail equipment accident incident record, but the order of the information shall be consistent with the one record with another. Such record, the order shall choose used in the railroad shall consist of each of the railroad reporting establishment of the railroad estimate may list additional information alternative to the record beyond the information required for the initial rail equipment accident incident record. The alternative record shall contain a minimum of the following information: date, time, accidents, reporting record of the accident incident with the other railroad, if applicable, the other railroad incident number. Alright, 4. Railroad responsible for the track maintenance for the railroad incident number, the type of the railroad incident, the derailment, collision, the number of the cars carrying the hazardous material derailed, and the damage, and the number of the cars carrying the hazardous material released their product. 7. The division. 8. The economy of the nearest state for the town. 9. The state. The 10. The pile post, the nearest 10. The 11. Specific tie. 12. The speed indicated actual estimate. 13. Train number, the job number. 14. Time of the equipment, the frame, passenger yard, switching, etc. 15. Type of the track, main yard, siding, and industry. Total number of the locomotives. 16. Total number of the locomotives that are derailed. 17. 18. The total number of the cars of the train. 18. 19. Total number of the cars derailed. 19. 20. The total amount of the damage dollars equipped with the base for the computation described in the FRA guide with the preparing the accident incident reports. 21. The total amount of the damage dollars, the track signal and weight of the structure of the base on the computation described in the FRA guide with the preparing accident incident report. 22. Primary cause. 23. Contribution cause. 24. Personal injury, personal implicated with employees with the occupational illness broke down with the following classification: work on the duty, employee with employee not on duty, the passenger and train, the non-trespasser on the railroad property, trespasser and work on the duty track of the contractor other than work on duty, volunteer other than non-trespasser off the railroad property. 25. The narrative description of the accident. 26. Whether the accident incident was reported in the FRA, the preparer's name and the title, the telephone number, the area code and signature, and 28. The date of the record initially signed, signed, and completed. Each railroad shall enter the reportable and accountable injury illness in each of the reportable accountable the railroad equipment. Each accident incident the appropriate record is required with the paragraphs A through E of this section. Each of it is earlier practicable to no later than 7 work days after the proceeding with the information required with the announcement for the injury of the illness for the required rail equipment and accident incident occurred. G. The records required under the paragraph A through E of this section may be detained in local establishment, alternatively at the centralized location if the records are maintained with the centralized location, not through the electrical means, then a paper of the records with the 35 days of the month to which they apply for this shall be available in establishment. The records are maintained with the centralized location and electronic means that the record shall be established shall be available for the review of the hard copy with the format with the 4 business hours. If the FRA requests, the FRA recognizes the circumstances outside the railroad's control may preclude with the fulfilling of the 4 business hour limit. Within these circumstances, the FRA will not set the monetary penalty against the railroad for the failure to provide the requested documentation provided with the railroad may be made a reasonable effort to correct the problem. Except this, provided in paragraph of age 15 with the suggestion listing of injuries, occupational illness reported with the FRA with the occurred to have an establishment shall be posted the conspicuous location with the establishment within 30 days after the expiration of the month during with the injuries illness that occurred with the establishment has been in continued observation for the minimum of 90 calendar days. If the establishment has been in continual operation for the minimum of 90 calendar days, the listing of all the injuries, occupational illness for the report of the FRA would have been occurred with the establishment shall be posted within 30 days after the expiration of the month during with injuries. Alright, illnesses occurred with a conspicuous location with the next higher organization, lowest level of establishment, such one with the following operation division, headquarters of the major classification, yard terminals, the major for the equipment, the maintenance, the repair, with the installation, locomotive, the rail car, the repairing construction facility, rail signal maintenance, where the division, headquarters of the central location with the where the track and signal maintenance employees are assigned with the headquarters to receive the work and assignments. For example, the where include facilities that generally major for the faculty for the with the where the railroad and generally most is emanate with the company and international note for the policy of the policy statement and the internal control plan required by the 225-33 concerning harassment, intimidation. At a minimum, establishment postcards required which shall include the location where the railroad had reasonably exempt the employees to report during a 12-month period, to have an opportunity to observe the post listed and containing any of the reportable injuries, illnesses that they have been suffered during the applicable period. Listing shall be posted, shall remain continuously displayed in the next 12 consecutive months with indicated the report for the employees of the establishment shall be displayed in the day sequence. The listing shall contain the minimum of the information specified in paragraph H1 through H14 of this section. Name of the address establishment, calendar of the year of the case beginning with the displayed, incident number of the used to be reported, day of the injury and illness, location of the incident. 6. Regular job title of the employer injured or ill. 7. Description of injury or conditions. 8. Number of the days employees absent at work at the time of the posting. 9. Number of the days of work restriction employee at the time of the day. 10. If they tell the enter the name of the death. And to 11. The annual average number of the railroad employees reporting to the establishment. 12. Prepare the name, title, telephone number, the area code, signature, and in lieu of the sign of the establishment list for the reporting injuries, illness for the railroad. Prepare with the monthly list for the May sign with the cover sheet with memorandum that contains the list of each of the railroad establishment in which the monthly list for the reportable injuries, illness has been prepared. The cover of the memorandum shall be signed with the preparing shall be attached to the duplicate the copy for the establishment listing the month reportable injury, illness prepared with the monthly list for the reportable injuries and illnesses shall maintain the same with the fact of its establishment list for the establishment time frame of the prescribed in paragraph H for the section, and 13, the day of the record was completed, whether no reportable injuries, occupational illnesses associated with the establishment for the month of the list shall make the reference to the fact. 15, the railroad permits not to convey information, occupational injury or illness for the privacy concerning the case. Alright, claimed occupational illness. 1. Each of the railroad maintain a form FRA 6180-107 alternative record of illness claim for the work related to the alternative of the railroad's design record is described in paragraph J of the section in place for the form FRA 6180-98 railroad employee information illness record injury and illness record only for those claimed occupational illness who have which the railroad has not received the information sufficient to determine whether the occupational illness is work related. Each railroad shall enter each of the illnesses claimed to be work-related on an appropriate record with the required with the paragraph I1 over the section as earlier practical no later than 7 working days of receiving the information acquiring knowledge that an employee is claiming that have the incurred occupational illness. Whenever the railroad does not receive the information sufficient to determine whether the claim that occupational illness is accountable or reportable, the railroad shall make a good faithful effort to obtain necessary information for December 1st by December 1st of the next calendar year. Within 15 calendar days for the additional information regarding the occupational illness, each of the railroads shall document receipt of the information, including date received with the type of the documentation information received with the narrative block 19 with the form FRA 180-107 alternative record illness claim to the work related within 45 days calendar of receiving the additional information regarding of the reclaimed occupational illness. Each railroad shall be reevaluate claimed occupational illness to determine the relatedness taken into account with a new injury with the document any of the finding of the result from the reevaluation narrative block 19 of the form FRS form 6180-107 alternative record of the illness claimed to be work related for any claimed occupational illness case determined by the occupational report of each of the railroad. Complete the form 6180-98 the railroad employee injury or illness record. Alternative railroad designed within 7 days of the making the determination retaining the form 6180-98 railroad employee injury or illness record in accordance with the form 225-27 the report occupational illness applicable in accordance with 225-11. 7. Any claim to occupational illness in the case determined not accountable to reportable each of the railroad and should include the following information in the narrative block 19 form FRA 6180-107 the alternative record of illness claim the work related alternative railroad design form 1 where the case does not meet the requiring criteria 2 the base upon the railroad with needs made this determination 3 the most authoritative information the railroad relied upon to make the determination 8 although the form 6180-107 alternative record for the illness claim to be work related or all the alternative railroad design form may be included all supporting documentation such as medical records the alternative record should know the custodian in those documents where the supporting documents are located that they are readily accessible to the FRA upon request. J. The alternative railroad design record may be also in lieu of the form 6180-107 alternative record of illness claim to the work related in such alternative record shall contain all the information required for the form FRA 6180-107 although the information may be displayed with a different order than on the form 6180-107 the order but the information can be sent from the one such of the record or any such record or order shall be true within the railroad shall be consistent from all the railroads reporting establishment railroad may list in additional information for the alternative record beyond the information required in the form 6180-107. The alternative record should contain at the minimum of the following information: the name of the reporting railroad, the case incident number, the employee, the first and middle and last name, the date of the birth, the employee's date of birth, the employee's gender, the employee's identification number, the date the employee was hired, the employee's home address, including street address, city, state, and the zip code, the employee's home telephone number, with the area code, name of the facility where the railroad employee normally reports to work, location of the last known facility where the employee reports to work, the job title of the railroad employee, the department for the which employees are assigned, date of which the employer, the representative notified of the company in personal condition, name of the railroad official notify the railroad official notified, name of the claimed, name and nature of the claimed illness, supporting documentation, custodian of the documents to the name and the title and address. Location of supporting documentation, narrative preparers, name preparers, title of preparation, telephone number with area code, and date of the record would initially sign and complete with a month and day and year. 225-27. Let's see how long the tape's running. I can cut it and do it in a second.